Well, yay, we have Kristin from HRDC here, and it seems like most of us already know her, so that's excellent. So thanks so much for being here. Take it away.
Thanks for having me, and I've been in this room so many times, I feel very comfortable. You guys were hugely important before we were in our current shelter and giving us that overflow. And I know you guys know how much it meant to HRDC in the community, but I'll say it again, it was a really big deal to be able to have a place that we could take women and families, and I was here a couple of the nights, and it was a lovely place to be, so thank you for that. And then thank you, you used to host our all-staff meetings here. We would get to come here twice a year. We've grown so much that we can't fit anymore. So we just recently had one, and we struggled. We went to the Rialto and sat, I know, to get everybody in, and it was still people standing. So HRDC has grown over the years, and that's not what we want to do. We don't want to get bigger, we want to get smaller. We want to get smaller because the need is no longer what it was. Our goal is to eliminate the effects of poverty in our community and increase services and stability so that families don't, or individuals don't experience crisis more than one time or for an extended amount of time. But to do that, it takes a lot of people and resources. I've been lucky enough to be a part of HRDC for 27 years now. I know, I don't like change. I like to stay the same thing. But really, I shouldn't say that because I started at HRDC doing emergency services. So I worked with individuals who were experiencing homelessness. And back then, if I saw 2 people a week, it was a busy week. You know, that it just wasn't what it was. I was able to access dollars from United Way to help prevent homelessness. We paid a lot of security deposits to get into an apartment, paid back power bills, or paid money for rent to prevent an eviction. That's what we did. And it was just me, and that was fine. And then over the years, it has changed to, I don't even know how many staff we have that are dedicated to working with individuals and families experiencing homelessness, but it's way more than one. I went to their staff meeting a while ago, and I'm the person who's worked at HRDC the longest. I was standing up there, and I said, back when I started and did emergency services, it was just me, and the whole room went, like, can you imagine? And really, absolutely everything we do at HRDC are services that help people experiencing homelessness. It all goes together. So over the 27 years that I've been there and the almost 50 years that we've been in the community, we've seen a lot of changes. Back in the beginning, we never would have imagined talking about food insecurity with the numbers we talk about today. When we do our summer lunch program, we would have maybe guessed back then, you know, maybe 2, 3, 400 kids might come and have lunch over the summer, and now it's in the thousands. The number of meals or groceries that we drive around our 3-county service area for seniors who are homebound and need some supplemental groceries it used to be 300 and now it's close to 500, and we have a waiting list for more. Our shelters, I never would have imagined that we would have 3 shelters. We have our main location off of Wheat Drive, the old skate palace, for anyone who's been in Bozeman long enough to have maybe roller skated there. And then we also have Wheat Suites, which is the old roadway inn, where we're sheltering individuals there as well. And we have a shelter in Livingston. So 3 shelters blew me away that we actually have that. We also have 3 food banks. We have one in Big Sky, one in Three Forks, and then our Gallatin Valley Food Bank. We used to all fit in one building. We were originally on the 3rd floor of the Bozeman Hotel on Rouse in Maine, and then we moved to 32 South Tracy. We acquired that building through a deed from the federal government because it used to be a post office. And we thought, wow, this is it. We have so much space. And then eventually we outgrew that space and we rented space across the street at 32 South Tracy. And then that didn't turn out to quite be enough. So we have office suites and medical arts. We're also in the senior center. And we have staff that work at home, and we're all over the place. Our CEO was counting the other day, and in our 3-service area, there's about 48 different places that HRDC exists. So we're spread all over. So, you know, we work around that, and we can make it work, but it's really hard for our customers. And the number of people that we're serving increases all the time. We say that we serve about 15,000 people in our valley, but those are the ones that we can count. They're not individuals who maybe go to the Fork and Spoon for a pay-what-you-can meal, hop on Streamline, access summer lunch, or maybe come into our lobby just to get warm, or go into the shelter just to do laundry but not stay. So we know our reach is bigger, and we know we have to prepare to reach more and more individuals. The cost of living is continuing to be higher than what we would like. I saw a thing the other day on Instagram that one of the realtor posted that the cost of a single-family home did drop in the last 3 months, but not by enough that makes it accessible for anyone that we have the honor to work with. So we can work around, but our customers, they need so many services just to stabilize and prevent a crisis. And we're giving them kind of like a treasure hunt map saying, okay, I know you're here, and go in and shop for the groceries you need, but then you might want to go over to 33 South Tracy and maybe apply for an early childhood education opportunity for your little one. And then go across the street and we can maybe help you with a power bill. Or you can meet someone in our Financial Opportunity Center to get some coaching. It's hard. And if you are in crisis and you are worried about where you're going to sleep, how you're going to get groceries, how you're going to get someplace, how you're going to pay an unexpected bill, adding more places to travel decreases the feasibility of actually getting that all done. And we don't want to wait. We don't want it to take 3 weeks or a month to get everything done. We want to get it done now and in one day, because we want that point of crisis to be rare, brief, and not happen over and over again. And we can do that because we live in an incredibly generous and kind community with lots of resources. HRDC has about 47 different opportunities that wrap around our customers, but there's more that people need. And we can partner with Family Promise for families experiencing homelessness, community health partners for physical and behavioral and dental care, mental health services, there's Thrive, and we have over 600 different partners. And so we want to create a new home for HRDC to really impact our community. And so I don't know if anyone has driven by Griffin Drive across from Northwest Energy just before Manley Road and seen a ginormous building going up. I'm happy to say that is our ginormous building. And it looks really, really big because most of it is warehouse space. So I actually have a picture of it right here. This is Community Commons. So this will be HRDC's new home. We broke ground last April on the first building, which is called Marketplace. So Marketplace is right here. These two big boxes here, this big space, that's the warehouse. And the reason why we have such a big warehouse, because it's bigger than we need today, but we're planning for 30 years out. And right now, we are storing food, some of the food at 602 Bond Street, our food bank, some of the food down the street at our bus barn in a bus bay, which we said originally we were going to take just a quarter of one bus bay to store some food for our Healthy Kids Pack program. And now we have a whole bay and we're moving in on another one. We also have to rent refrigerator space from time to time, and we just have problem having all the food we eat in one location. It's really challenging. Like, if the shelves are low on peanut butter and we have to go get peanut butter, it's not like you can just go in the back and bring a pallet out. You have to go to a different building, maybe move 10 different things to get the peanut butter. It's also hard keeping inventory because we never really know how much we have because it's in so many locations. So we're building big, so we have plenty of place to store the food, knowing that we may not need all the space right away, but we've also learned that people need that space, so we'll be able to rent out the space that we're not utilizing. So the biggest chunk of it is warehouse, and then in the front is the exciting part. We will have our Fork and Spoon Pay What You Can restaurant. Has anyone here volunteered at the Fork and Spoon? It's pretty fun, isn't it? We're moving it to Community Commons because it makes sense, because our customers will be there and we want them to access that food. We will reimagine what the Fork and Spoon looks like when we go there, because we'll have more opportunities to have take-home meals that you can purchase or you can take. We will also have probably coffee in the morning because there's a lot of people working in that area, but there's not a lot of coffee shops. So we would love to have a revenue-generating opportunity where people could come in and get their morning coffee, latte, tea, or whatever, and a pastry that we make right there, and we can still make it pay what you can, but have a minimum fee so that we can make some money off it also. And while you're shopping in the rest of the building, our Gallatin Valley Food Bank will move over there. So people will be able to come in and shop for their groceries and then maybe have a meal at the Fork and Spoon. If they did those two things, it would ease their budget immensely. If you went in once a week and got some extra groceries and stopped for a meal, you're saving, well, we've all been to the grocery store, you're probably saving $50. And if you have children, it could be even more than that. Plus, when you walk into this building, you will be able to access every program that HRDC offers. Yes, I know, we feel the same way. So when you come in, you can be meted by one of our service navigators who will sit down and be like, all right, Kristin, what's going on? What brings you in today? We get to know each other a little better. We figure out the things that might really help my family. And I can talk to someone right away. I can get the application. I can have a quiet space to sit down and do it. Then I can go do my grocery shopping or get a meal. And if I didn't have a car to get there, our streamlined bus will stop right up in front. So we're creating incredible efficiencies that will impact our customers greatly, impact our staff, making it easier to do our job and for us to work together, but it will also impact the community. HRDC is here to serve individuals and families in crisis, but we're here for the whole community, and we're part of the area's emergency response team, especially in the part of food nutrition and shelter. So if there was a natural disaster in town, that's not wood, but it'll do, and there was a call out for food or shelter, we want to be able to be a part of the solution and be able to shelter and feed people, but we need the space to do so, and we need to have the resources on hand. So this will help not just the customers we serve and the volunteers who come through our doors and our staff, but the entire community, and we're really excited about it. Construction was really slow at first, like it always is, because we were waiting for the framers to come, and when we started this project, we created a space that was really intentional and informed. We checked in with a lot of our partners that have shelters. We found out what they were happy that they did and what they really wished that they would have done, and we put together a very thoughtful plan. We spent a lot of time. In this room, actually, we spent 4 hours as an entire staff talking about what these two buildings look like. And then we started raising money, and we were successful. And then we went out for bid, and we were unsuccessful because everything came back just as everyone had warned us that no matter how much value engineering we did up front, it was going to come back 20 to 30% higher, and it did. So we just went back to the drawing board and we scaled back where we could. We changed some of the construction, so we have these pop-up buildings that took a long time to travel here, but they traveled here. They're up. The building's being framed in. You walk through it now, and you can actually see offices and space and the kitchen, and it's really exciting. And we plan to move into this first building in November of 2023. And so far, so good. We have weekly meetings where we check in on the progress, and right now we are on schedule. We were off, but we caught up. We're working with R&R Taylor Construction. They also built our Housing First Village, and they've been absolutely lovely. Way back when we started dreaming of our future, we gathered a group of wonderful individuals who would help us fundraise for our future home, Community Commons. And we set a fundraising goal of $15 million for the project. The project costs more than $15 million, but half of it was going to come through community donations. And I'm excited to say that right now we're at $14.6 million. So the finish line is close. That said, we know it's going to cost a little more than we expected, so we're going to keep fundraising after we hit that $15 million, and our goal actually now is about 16.5. But we have a path to get there, and I know that we will. We will get there. The reason why we started this building first was because we had gifts come in that were restricted for just Marketplace. It was hard because our second building, which I'll talk about in a second, is Homeward Point, and that's a year-round emergency shelter that also has a resource center. You look at both of them, and it's hard to choose which one is more important to the community because the need is so great in both areas. But the gifts came in for our food and nutrition program in Marketplace first, so that's why we're building that building. But we're very excited to be almost there. Does anyone have any questions about Marketplace? Are you all excited to volunteer there someday? Volunteering will look entirely different. I don't know, who's volunteered at the food bank? Thank you, because it's a rough place to volunteer. Have you ever noticed where your volunteer break room is? It's because you don't have one. But there is a table about that big. There's a table about that big, full of stuff. There's sometimes a chair, sometimes there's not. Sometimes there's a hook to put your coat, sometimes not. And I met with a lovely individual who volunteered for about 2 months, and she's like, I can't take it there. It's cold or it's hot. My knees hurt, and the noise of all the refrigerators and the fans and the people and the doors and the traffic, it's too much for her. And she always has to park so far away. So there will be an entrance for staff and volunteers. There will be space for you guys to sit. You know, volunteering at anything HRDC can also, it can be physically taxing, but it has an emotional component too. So sometimes you might be at the food bank and you meet a family and you're like, wow, that could be my child. That's someone I recognize. The struggles that they're going through is hard for me to wrap my head around. It'd be nice to sit down and have a coffee or a tea and maybe talk to someone about that and learn more about how we're helping that family. Because I think about our volunteers a lot. They see the customers come in, they hear a little bit of their story, they know that they're in crisis, but then they don't know what else is happening. Like, how are we assisting that family? What is the long-range plan? What can we do to make sure that they're not living in their car or that they're in this state of crisis? So we're very excited. And if you are a donor who just wants to drive through and drop off a turkey on Thanksgiving, and normally you have to park and haul your turkey over there, or you go into the parking lot, which is a very dangerous place to be sometimes, you will have a donor drop-off area covered. It's right here. We made sure that design team put it in the picture because it's one of the things we're most excited about. So you can drive through, stop, and someone will come out and take your donation for you. Or if you're volunteering to do summer lunch, has anyone done that? Summer lunch, or you've done everything. Thank you. Or senior groceries, delivering senior groceries, you can pull up and unlock your trunk and we'll just put it in the back for you. So we'll create a lot of efficiencies for volunteers also. We have about 3,000 volunteers. We know we have space for more. Every volunteer saves us money, saves the program money. Plus volunteers are this fresh group of wonderful individuals who come in and inspire and encourage us. And I know the food bank especially, they love the volunteers. They have a small team, and when you think about their job, every single day they come in, unload trucks, stock the shelves, get everything set, 1 o'clock hits, and people come in and the shelves are emptied, and all the energy and the emotion and the feelings of the customers and all the work to make sure we're connecting them to resources and the barriers we're seeing, they experience all of that. Then they clean up, they go home, and they do the same thing over and over and over, and it weighs on them. And having volunteers come in and say, I can do this for you, I'll help you with this, I'll unpack this box, let me help this customer out, it goes a long way. So we appreciate all of your volunteering. Anything else on the first building before I move to the second one? Feel free to ask questions. The second one is Homeward Point, and I will admit I'm the most excited about this one. Has anyone been to our shelter? Have you volunteered at the shelter?
I volunteered when we had it here.
Okay, well, thank you. I will have to talk and see what else you volunteered. We might want to do a story on you. Has anyone been there when it was a skating rink? Did anyone skate there? There you go. So when we first opened a shelter many years ago, we lost an individual who passed away from experiencing homelessness. He froze to death in the back of a U-Haul truck where he sought shelter that evening. It was on the front page of the paper, and it was time. Our community was ready. It was hard to imagine that there were people dying from homelessness, but it was time to do something about it. That happened in the fall. We wanted to make sure we were open around Christmas. We ended up opening around the first of the year because it was really hard to find a space to go. We started raising dollars. We had some money to invest, but we had nowhere to go. Then finally, Gallatin County Fairgrounds said, we'll give you a space. It wasn't as big as this room. The bathrooms were on the outside. The first year we saw under 50 individuals experiencing homelessness. But the community funded it, the community supported it, and we kept on going. Actually, our staff all committed to like volunteering, taking home the laundry, bringing snacks in, doing the cleaning. So everyone signed up. I signed up for, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 shifts, and I only got to do 2 because the community came in and took all of our shifts away. And it was amazing. When we asked for blankets, because we knew we couldn't afford to buy blankets and sleeping bags, so we put a call out, and it was the first time we had ever asked for blankets and sleeping bags and that kind of stuff. It was so high that it was a problem. We had nowhere to take it, and we had stacks in the hallway, we had stacks in the office, and it was amazing. And that began our shelter. So we were at the fairgrounds that first year. The second year, they moved us to a bigger building, and we had a bathroom inside, which was fantastic. But we outgrew that too. So then we moved to the Old Thompson Rental. Does anyone remember the Old Thompson Rental on Industrial Drive? That was a rental company. You could go there to get a lawnmower or linens or tables. It was not a shelter. But in the HRDC way, we made it into a shelter, and it was awful. I mean, it did the job, but it was so hard to do the job. It had one sink in a with 2 bathrooms, and then one multi-purpose room with a sink big enough to do dishes in. Otherwise, there was no other sinks. The outlets, most of them did not work. So people's lifeline often, if they're experiencing homelessness, is their phone or their tablet. There was no way to charge them. There was lots of drama about setting these schedules to charge people's phones. It wasn't a safe place. There was lots of little rooms. Storage was non-existent. Heating costs were atrocious. Again, the community came in and helped us fix it up and made it the best that it could be. COVID hit. That was a game changer. There was no longer, we could shelter so many people in such a small space. And we knew that we were exceeding our numbers every night, and that's why you wonderful people allowed us to bring customers over here. Having customers come here was great, but also expensive because it was 2 additional staff and then transportation back and forth. And our little ones were coming into our shelter and hanging out there until around 9, and then they would come here. And it was wonderful because they were safe and warm and cared for, but we knew we needed to do differently. So then we found out that the old Skate Palace was available. So we went over and took a look at it, and it was going to be a fireplace store where you'd go in and you'd pick a fireplace model for your home. So it was weird. We walked in and it was set up with a whole bunch of fireplaces down the middle, but none of them were completed. Someone had bought the building with the intention of to open that store, and then they had changed their plans. So we were able to rent it, and we're still renting it with an opportunity to buy after 5 years. But it took a lot of work because previous to it being a fireplace store or potential fireplace store, it was a daycare. So all of the toilets and sinks were like down here, and there weren't enough. And one of the problems we had at our old shelter is having 2 bathrooms and 2 showers is not enough. So it took a lot of work and it took a lot of money to raise. And COVID was a part of our community, and I can't even go back and revisit those days because it was challenging, but we did it. And when we walked in, I was like, this is it. We'll be able to wait till Homeward Point because this is the biggest space we've been in, and it just felt huge. And it turns out it's not. You would think, but it's not. The number of guests that we're serving now averages between, on a low night we might see 70, and on a high night we'll see maybe 100. We've been up to 110 in our Bozeman shelter. We're sheltering also in Livingston. Those numbers are lower than Bozeman, of course, and then we have some guests that are staying at the hotel who have some special needs or still need medical beds there. We divide the space with curtains, so it's a wire structure with these big curtains on it, and that's how the space is divided. We do the best that we can for noise. We have an HVAC system, which is a game changer. We have 6 showers for men, 6 showers for women. We have laundry that runs 24 hours a day. So there's a lot of really good things, but there's also not a lot of space, not proper lighting, not proper separation of the different individuals who are sleeping there, and absolutely no privacy. When someone walks through our shelter, it's probably one of the lowest points in their life. Likely, the majority of our guests would have never envisioned themselves in a situation of homelessness, but here they are. And they can be a young person, an older person. All of them want to tell us that they're working. When they're working, they're like, well, I have this job and I work 40 hours and I just can't. And they tell us their story, and it's a low point. and they don't get to tell their story alone, one-on-one. It would be kind of like all of you sitting here and I walk through the door and you come up and you ask me some questions and do my intake and you're all here listening. And you all understand because you've been in that seat before and you try to give your privacy, but it's still not there, so it's hard. One of the best ways for us to make sure we move people from that place of homelessness to security and thriving is to develop a relationship. We need to have our guests trust us and believe that we can help them. Many of them are scared to trust anybody. So we have to establish that relationship, and it's hard to do so in such a chaotic environment. And I don't know if any of you guys have stopped by. It's chaotic sometimes. I mean, it's chaos. Our staff had a rough winter, so there was 2 weeks where our CEO said, let's let our staff take a break, and directors and managers, we're going to fill in for 2 weeks. So everybody sign up shifts, and we're going to come in and help them have some time off. So I've been there many times. I go there at least once or twice a week, but I hadn't done an overnight shift. And it's a tough job. It's hard. You have so many people sleeping in one space. Behavioral health is an issue. People are exhausted. People are scared. There's a lot going on in those shelters. Our staff are absolutely amazing. So when we started talking about what we wish we had, we again learned from others in Montana and across the country what we should do for a shelter. We don't want the shelter to be home. Because some of our guests will say, oh, I'm home. Oh, this is my bed. It feels so good to be home. We don't want our shelter to be home. We want our shelter to be a shelter. Safe, warm place to stay with access to the resources so they don't have to be in shelter. But we need to create a place that's safe and warm and has the opportunity to connect to those resources and really focusing on the safe part of it. So I didn't understand this when it was first brought to me, but we designed this building with a trauma-informed approach. So we looked at all the different types of individuals that we're sheltering and recognizing that everybody has different needs to feel safe and secure. Some people can just come in and you're at bunk 36 and you go over, you put blankets over your head, you go to sleep, you wake up 8 hours later and you go to your job. But some people, it's a lot harder. We have a section in our shelter that could be bigger, and it's for people who have medical issues or behavioral issues. So they need someone to have eyes on them during the night to make sure they don't stop breathing, or that they're, if they get up and wander around, they know where they're at, or whatever their needs are. There might be some physical limitations as far as the bunk goes. So we need a special space for people who have a medical need. We need to separate men and women with more than just a curtain. We have people who, the majority of our customers are living here and working here and priced out of the market. They need to get a good night's sleep. Some people don't like to sleep in the dark. Some people like to have a little bit of light. Some people have been camping for so long and outdoors that the four walls without any windows available is really stressful. So making sure we have space that makes everybody comfortable. And also, many of our customers also have little furry guests with them, and we want to make sure that they're not denying shelter because of a pet. So we want to have space for kennels so that we can care for their pets, their dogs, their cats. I think we've just had dogs, cats, and I think maybe one ferret and one snake that have stayed in the shelter. There was a girl who had a rat that lived in her sleeve. I know. I almost touched it, but so we want to make sure we're able to shelter everybody. So that trauma-informed design, and trauma-informed means wider hallways, more workstations for people to use a computer to fill out applications, private areas, a little kitchenette, because when homelessness happens, so much of someone's independence is taken away from them. They don't have the opportunity to make decisions for themselves, like cooking food. Like maybe after a long day, you just want tomato soup, Campbell's tomato soup, but you don't have that choice. You eat whatever's at the shelter, whatever's at the fork and spoon, or you don't eat. So having a little kitchenette so that someone can go in and make their own comfort food is a great thing. Also, we do people's laundry during the night, and I wouldn't mind if someone came and took my laundry, but it's also my laundry. And it's all that I have having someone else do your laundry is kind of fearful, because what if I don't get it back? Is it the only socks that I have? What am I going to do if I don't get them back? This is my favorite sweater. What if it comes back different? So having people have the ability to do their own laundry goes a long way. Also, it can be very overwhelming to walk into our shelter, especially if you have little ones, if you're a family. We have had families who've walked in and turned around and walked out and just said, no, I can't do it. And we go after them because we don't shelter them at the shelter. We'll find an alternative place for them to go. But even to come in and do their laundry or to meet with the housing case manager, we want them to feel comfortable, and they just don't. So we will have 6 family suites that have a separate entrance along the back where they can come in, and it's just for families in that area. And the suites kind of mimic what a child might need in their household. We want to reduce the trauma of homelessness for our families as much as possible. So there'll be a place to do homework, couch to sit on, bathtub to take baths, because little ones, you can't just put them under a shower. I mean, you can, but it's probably not very pleasant for anyone. So having baths and play area is important and essential. We have not broken ground on Homeward Point. We still have some dollars that we need to raise to get to that place. We're getting closer though, and we hope to break ground in this calendar year. We would love to break ground in September or October, and the build out for Homeward Point is about 12 to 18 months. Again, what we planned, we know we aren't going to be able to afford. So just a couple weeks ago, we had another session where we went through the plan and eliminated things that we knew we could. We're also luckily working with Bozeman Health to have some respite beds within the shelter. Because does anyone work in the healthcare system here? You've probably been faced where you have a customer who has a lot of needs, and discharging them from the hospital when they don't have a place to go feels really, really awful for the medical staff. They can't keep them there forever. They do the best they can. But having a bed, so if someone comes in and there's one of our clients who is in Housing First Village now. He had a hernia. He had 2 hernias, and he couldn't do anything about it. He was in pain. It was probably dangerous. I don't know a lot about hernias, but he was pretty miserable about it. But he couldn't have the surgery because he had no place to recover. So he was in Housing First Village after years of homelessness for just a couple of months, and he went and got that surgery. So having these medical beds for someone to recover, I thought about it during COVID. I had COVID, I was vaccinated, and I had COVID, and I felt horrible. And I thought, oh my gosh, if I didn't have a place to go and rest as much as I needed to, how miserable that would be. So these respite beds are really exciting to be able to offer in our shelter. So the goal is to open that space, the Homeward Point, 12 to 18 months after we break ground. And then we would move all the operations from Weed Drive over to this campus, and that space that we're currently in, the Skate Palace, if we can afford to purchase it, we will, and we do have someone who's interested in helping us purchase it, and that would become the resource center and community center for all the residents of Housing First Village. Does everyone know what Housing First Village is? I'm sure you probably volunteered on the building. Did you go out there? You did? Housing First Village is truly tiny homes for people who've experienced long-term chronic homelessness. They're 150 to 500 square feet. The larger ones have space for their ADA units and space for wheelchairs. But they really are tiny, but they're built very efficiently and very well. And we learned from 17 different Housing First Villages across the country the best practices to build those. We've been open and have residents there since November 1st of 2021. So we've gone, so we're over a year, and it's been life-changing for the residents there. We moved 12 people in. We have 7 more units under construction. We're working with Habitat for Humanity to get those done. They're this close, but Habitat's been struggling with time, supplies, and volunteers. So we're being patient, but we need to get those done as quickly as possible. The guests who live there, 2 have passed away, unfortunately. 2 gentlemen, both in their 50s, passed away. One passed away in his sleep, and the family did not do an autopsy. We don't know what the cause of death was, but likely it was years of experiencing homelessness. He had just celebrated his 50th birthday there, and it was a hard loss for everybody. That was a tough one. Jeff had become someone that all of us knew, and we were so excited. when he got his home, and so was he. He wore a white t-shirt almost every day after he moved in because he could. Because he could wear a white shirt and not have it get dirty. He could wash it on his own. He's a character. And then another gentleman passed away. He had some underlying health conditions that he started to address once he was stabilized, but it was too late for any treatments to turn it around. So he passed away. I would love to stand here and say opening Housing First Village has been a smooth ride, but it's not. The individuals that we're sheltering all came with a lot of barriers to housing and a lot of struggles and challenges, and we're walking through those challenges with them every single day. There's 2 steps forward and 1 step back, but then we take 2 more steps forward, and it's better than these individuals living on the street and likely passing away. In 2021, we had 9 individuals in our community who passed away directly from homelessness. Was there contributed to their death, and they died outside. That's crazy that wasn't on the front paper, that wasn't in the news. Housing First Village eliminates that. Also, the cost to care for someone in our community who's experienced long-term chronic homelessness is pretty expensive. We did a study several years ago, it's been about 6 years, before we imagined Hamburg Point, to just find out what does it cost for our entire community to take care of someone experiencing homelessness. How many people knew Buzzard, the artist on Main Street, the wonderful gentleman? I think about him. He was housed when he passed away, and I was a part of his care team, so I got to spend lots of good quality time with that wonderful human. It took a lot to take care of Buzzard when he was homeless. He'd go to the food bank regularly. When he was mentally able to, he would stay at our shelter. He was never had any incidents with law enforcement, but for many, that can be something that incurs costs. But he had some ambulance rides, he had some medical care, he spent a lot of time at the library. When we did our study, we followed 6 individuals for 1 year and aggregated the cost of services, and it was about $28,000 per person that the community spent to keep someone cared for who's experiencing homelessness. But it was just not a very good Band-Aid. It really didn't address the root cause of the homelessness or really move that person forward. Housing First Village is a much more efficient and effective option. Buzzard actually helped us find the land. He drove around and he was like, hey, you should have it over there. And it was a place that was kind of on our radar, but then we started working with Tom Starter, with Gene Cook Real Estate, now he's with his own company, and he helped us find that land. Do you have a question?
Yeah, on the topic of homelessness and the challenges to getting out of it. And you talked about you're running a shelter, not a home, while people connect with resources. What's the biggest resource connection need that these people have for helping them get out of being homeless?
Well, the problem we face in our community, I know won't surprise you. In every community, there's like a housing ladder, and the different rungs are the different income brackets within our community. And in most communities, there's a lower rung. That's housing that's attainable and affordable. It may not be the best. It might be a mobile home. It might be an apartment. It might be a room to rent, but there's a rung there for people who are living and working here but not making a really high wage. In this community, that doesn't exist. The properties that we have that have subsidies attached to it all have 0 vacancies and waiting lists. So our biggest challenge is surprisingly not income, because 89.7% of the customers we serve across all of HRDC have income. Mm-hmm. So no income is rarely a problem, and if it is a problem, there's plenty of jobs. So we can help connect people to job training to get a job, but more likely, if that individual's not working, there's a reason, and we need to find a different route or some sort of an income source for them, SSI or SSDI. It's the lack of affordable options. So a lot of time, we do problem solving with an individual, and we don't just look for housing in this area. I mean, most of our guests have a connection to Gallatin Park or Hamburg County. They're from here and they don't want to leave. But for some that are traveling through, they have to go to find housing. It just doesn't exist here. We put people on every affordable unit waiting list we possibly can. We make sure that they're prepared for housing when it comes available. We have a ready-to-rent class that teaches someone how to be a good renter. If there's an option for our Financial Opportunity Center to sit down with them, we might help them put together a plan so that they can save for that deposit and that first month's rent. We'll connect them to any resources possible. If they're a veteran, there's opportunities out there that they may not know exist. We do everything we can to try and find the best solution. If we had more units available, we would do it. I mean, when you sit at the shelter and you meet some of our guests, there's a gentleman who works at one of the businesses in the area, and they pay a decent wage. He just can't find something. So he works all day, and then he gets into his vehicle and drives the long way around to come to the shelter because he's embarrassed. He doesn't want any of his coworkers to see that he's there. We have a town pump manager who manages the town pump over by Lindley Park. She's an amazing woman. She lost her apartment, didn't think she would ever need to go to the shelter. She would stay in a hotel for a while, but hotels aren't affordable either. So the last I heard, she was still staying there while she was waiting to find a roommate or a place to go. There's an MSU student. He only has this semester left. Couldn't afford his apartment anymore, so he's staying there. Stays on campus all day long, and he stays there till he graduates and then hopefully finds a place to go. Common stories.
This is so stark to hear all this, and it's like when you live living here, you know this is happening. But hearing these stories and the statistics is just like it's so awful. And I think in the Chronicle often there's talk about different policies that the council is debating. And I'm wondering, like I'm no expert in housing, and so I don't know exactly what to think or how to use my voice. But I'm wondering from an advocacy lens, does HRDC have any kind of policies that you're recommending to try to address some of these systemic issues?
Thank you for asking that. It's great. Advocates help us all the time. On our website, at the very top, we have a policy page that we put our housing policies and the things that we're working for so people are informed and know what we're facing. We also have calls periodically when we're trying to, like Housing First Village, there had to be some zoning changes for us to make that happen. It wasn't an easy, a 150 square foot home is not a popular idea for everyone. So sometimes we will use community advocates to go to a meeting and just speak from their heart and support the cause. Our urban transit district right now, we've used a lot of community advocates for that. And also just sharing that homelessness does exist in your community goes a long way. It's still, it's a lot more visible than it used to be, but there are still people who don't realize that it's a problem in our community. And I get it. We live in a beautiful community. There's a lot of There's a lot of beautiful things out here, and it's really hard to look and see the other side of it. And I don't want to either, but it exists. And does anyone know Jim Drummond? Yeah. Yeah, of course you do. So Jim Drummond was on our steering committee to help us fundraise, and we all got together the first meeting and talked about why we were in the room. And Jim said, you know what? I grew up here. And there was a gentleman named Charlie who was homeless. Everyone knew Charlie. Everyone knew what he was going through. And when my mom would make bread, she'd make a little extra and take it to Charlie wherever he was. And when this person would make something, she would take a little more. And the guys would help him do this. And people would invite him in. And because the whole community took care of Charlie because Charlie was homeless. That's really still what we have to do now, is take care of the Charlies. And there's just a lot more than there used to be.
Housing issue. I happen to have a son who's the mayor of a town in another state that has similar cost of housing issues. And they have managed to take the step that we can't even get a discussion about so far in this state, is they've changed their tax structure to provide publicly owned housing that is affordable. We talk about wanting to advocate for something. We just recently had a task force for affordable housing, and the best ideas they could come up with was changing some zoning rules. The fact is, this stuff costs money, and if we as a community are not willing to pay it, we're going to continue to suffer what we suffer now.
run for city council. You should run for city council.
Ah,
Yeah, we do have a wonderful city council, and the city supports us the best that they can. I mean, of course, we wish we could do more. Our CEO and our community development team and our board of directors are constantly at the table having those conversations. Any conversations usually that exist about housing in the community, there's someone from HRDC present. We own about 400 units in Gallatin and Park County and in Lamar County that have some sort of a financial subsidy, usually through HUD, attached to it, and those are wonderful, but they're not enough. I've been working with a family that I met years ago. They were stabilized and doing great, lost their apartment, and then they were renting an apartment, and unfortunately the owner needed to bring a family member into that unit, so they've been 3 kids, mom, dad, mom working full-time, dad helping with the kids, and they've been living in our Lead Suites hotel, working with Family Promise, and mom was just at her end. She's been on the waiting list for housing for a long, long time, and she got to the top. So next Tuesday, they get to move into an apartment that they know they can rent long-term. It's based on their income, they can afford it. Like, she looks like a different person than she did before. It's just a long wait, but once she's in, you know, she was telling the kids, no one is going to break any rules here. Like, we are never leaving. And it's an HRDC property. We have rules, but we won't let them break it. We won't let them lose it. But there are good stories that happen every day. It's one of the best things about working at HRDC for so long. I've seen people in crisis who've let us meet them where they're at, became a partner with us in changing their story, and they have moved from homelessness to stability, to thriving, to home ownership. I've worked with 2 individuals who at once experienced homelessness, and one is a homeowner and a Head Start teacher and has been with us for about 12 years, and the other one runs part of our shelter. She and her children lived in a camper in Missoula for years, and now she's running the shelter. They're safely housed, the kids are in school, and she's giving back, and she gives back with a lot of empathy because she's been there.
Kristin, can you just tell what HRDC does for those who are living?
Yeah.
I think that's.
So that's an unfortunate new program that we added. We sometimes really celebrate new programs. Like, you know, during COVID, we added a program that connected someone who wasn't able to leave their home with someone who would go grocery shopping or pick up a pharmacy or whatever things for them. We were super excited that we got a little funding for that, and we got to celebrate that new program. Our urban camping outreach is not a program we celebrate because we wish we didn't have to do it. It's really painful to think of how many people are living in a car, truck, camper, or tent. There's about 400 different individuals that we stop and visit, and we go out twice a week, and we partner with local law enforcement, the Bozeman Police Department. I wish I could think of the outreach gentleman's name, but they're lovely. And they go sometimes in uniform, sometimes dressed down. They always take one of our staff. We have a couple of volunteers, and we just check in. We'll just knock on the camper or the car and be like, how are you doing today? Is there anything that you need? Do you know you can come and take a shower here or do your laundry? Did you know that you could stop by and visit someone? Can you go with a fork and spoon? And we do the outreach just to make sure they're safe. On those really cold days, we'll go out every single day and make sure that we're bringing supplies to them, whether it's blankets, hand warmers, propane, help with gas so they can keep their vehicle running, food for their pets. We just go out and connect. Again, we're trying to build trust, but what we're discovering is they're all doing the best that they can. They're working, they have income. They didn't think they'd live in their car this long. They are. Not all of them are working, but most of them are. So the mom that I talked about that's getting to move in on Tuesday, her mom works at Winco and has worked there for a while. She was living outside of town, couldn't afford driving back and forth in an old vehicle, so she started living in a camper behind town home there. She didn't think she would stay there that long, but she's been there 2 winters now. And she needed a ride home. She needed a ride to the laundromat, and I picked her up like on the 23rd and we did that. She was exhausted, you could tell. The propane wasn't working, the weather was really cold, she hadn't been able to shower, just nothing was going right. And on Christmas Eve, she wanted to stay with her daughter, but there was not room in their temporary housing for her. And I was complaining to my family, like,
I don't know what to do. We can't let this lady spend Christmas Eve in this camper. She's, someone's grandma. And we were calling hotels, but the hotels were either way too expensive or they weren't operating or they didn't have vacancies. And my son's friends' parents are connected to the Armory Kimpton. So he comes downstairs and he goes, Mom, guess what? Julie can go and stay at the Armory. And I'm like, what? And he goes, I just called Mimi. And she said, oh, that's my mom. And Mom said, yeah. And I'm like, are you sure? And he goes, yeah, all you have to do is call and give her her name and they'll tell you what to do. So I called and said the woman's name. And she's like, they said, okay, bring her by whenever. So I got to go pick her up when she was done at her shift and take her there. And they loved having her. So I didn't get to see, but I guess they decorated the room and made her feel really comfortable. And she had to spend Christmas Eve at the nice, maybe the nicest hotel. I know. Yep. This community is very generous. Very generous.
Can I ask just a definitional clarification? When we talk about our overall numbers of people experiencing homelessness, are the urban camping folks included in that?
Yep. And once a year, the state of Montana does a date and time survey. And I asked for it on Friday. If they knew the numbers yet, and they didn't. There's just so much data to pull. But I'm guessing the numbers are a lot higher than it used to be. We used to have 300 or 400. And I'm guessing that the numbers will come back over 500 people in just our community experiencing homelessness.
Oh,
It's a lot. Yep. Any other questions? Thank you guys all for your time this morning. And thank you for all that you do as a congregation. Our congregations, without you, we wouldn't be. I could talk all day about the great things that HRDC does. We have 200 amazing employees who go above and beyond, but we can't do it alone. We do it because of people like you. So thank you for giving us those opportunities.
thank you.
Thank you. And then I'm going to leave brochures because I think that you guys